Right, this is the NQ80 Daily. Thank you very much for everyone who's watched so far and provided comments. Never go full Goldbridge was one of the comments, which I have to admit made me chuckle.
Also great life advice.
It is generally good life advice, yeah. We're going to talk about the FA Cup, and it's caused some controversy with the replays being scrapped for basically the whole round one onwards, I think. We haven't had replays post quarter-final for a while, have we?
No. And obviously the last semi-final one was when Ryan Giggs scored that beautiful goal in 99.
What drama. What drama. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how much controversy this has created with clubs up and down the EFL, like saying that they're not happy with it and protesting about it, and the FA releasing really measly-mouthed, shitty statement, wasn't it? It's just like, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It was a little bit like Novara Media's apology the other day. I don't know if you saw that. But basically, they had an apology where they were like, we investigated it ourselves and we found out that we did nothing wrong. So there you go. Yeah. It was a little bit like, it's very similar to that. Like, I've got the statement in front of me here, and it's a lot of words, but there's not a lot of things said in it.
No, you could boil it down to, we're sorry that you're upset about this.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. Yeah. It's your problem. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of have to say, I mean, you know, obviously I'm a fan of Manchester United and I'd like to see us back in the Champions League. And now with that goes this massive bloated tournament, and there's like basically no free dates in the calendar. So I kind of, from that point of view, I understand why the larger clubs or the Premier League don't want replays. They just don't want the extra, there's no space in the calendar, and they'd probably end up playing under 21s as a result. But instinctively, I think I'm with most football fans when I'm going, yeah, why should we fuck the smaller clubs like this? I mean, it's a rare event in which they get a replay at, you know, a small club gets a replay against a Premier League side and gets to have a massive payday. It's like winning the lottery. It's rare, and they shouldn't model their business model on that. But still, taking something away and not giving them anything back.
Yeah, that is it. I think that point is really important to make, that like clubs shouldn't be relying on this. Like, they shouldn't be like, oh my God, you're taking a payday away from him, because it should be, as I think we spoke about on the last pod actually, like that there should be more of an equal sharing of the wealth. Like, you look at like how much money like City have got, and then you think, yeah, they're pining for not to have replays. And I think probably a lot of there's probably are some other clubs in the lower leagues who probably don't want them either, because they're going for promotion or they're going against relegation. And do they want a replay in the round 2 against a team that's in their league? No, they definitely won't be. And you think a lot of actually the clubs in the lower leagues in the AFL in the first few rounds, they actually play reserves as well, like championship clubs as well. Going for the Premier League, they often play like reserve teams in the first few rounds as well. So it is important to remember that. But I think that the big point is that the club shouldn't be relying on this money, like a big payday against because we have seen clubs in the last 10, 15, 20 years have survived because of getting a replay against United or getting a replay against a big club. And that just speaks to a massive fundamental unspoken problem, clearly. Like, people are talking, oh, they're going to miss out on all this money. Well, why don't we kind of spend like less energy arguing about this and more energy arguing about maybe splitting the wealth a little bit and passing around a little bit more equity to all the clubs around the country, rather than them having to rely on games like this. And I do take the point that, yeah, it's great when, I don't know, Notts County from League 2 get a massive away day at Man United in the replay or whatever. But that is quite rare. And there are a lot of occasions where, and I think what the FA have also done here has been, in their own conservative, boring way, they've just done it in such a clean fashion. Whereas you look at some like solutions abroad as well, like I can't remember what exact countries, but sometimes they have I think it's Germany, the lower league club always plays at home. in the DFB Pokal.
Right.
And or maybe you can look at like some inventive solutions rather than just going, this is going to be the way and that's it, like they have done in this case, with this case.
Well, in France, the FFF pays the costs for clubs from like Martinique and New Caledonia.
I love that they do that in that league.
It's brilliant. Yeah, and I think it's corny and it's a cliche to say magic of the cup, but there is some magic in that. And many of my memories growing up as a kid loving football are FA Cup based, and not just United. And so, keeping it special, I think is important. I don't think replays are essential to the specialness of the club. And I think if this had come with redistribution of wealth or some kind of compensation, everyone would be all right with it. And I don't really think like replays necessarily add to the magic. Obviously, Ryan Giggs, 99, we wouldn't have had that without a replay. It'd have been very different if it'd gone straight to penalties after the first game. Granted, they can produce some magic, but it's not inherently the replay that does that in a cup competition. So, but I think, you're right. It's fairer redistribution. But what do we mean by fair? We mean an amount of money that allows all 92 clubs to be sustainable and puts money into the grassroots. The Premier League generates about £2 billion more than any other league per year. It's incredibly wealthy. They won't lose their competitive advantage by distributing a bit more. The thing is, Premier League clubs are loss-making because it's highly competitive. In any industry where you get a highly competitive industry, like ecosystem, it's hard to make money, right? Because they're all competing. It's an arms race all of the time. And that's why, despite all the kind of bleating and complaining and conspiracy theory mongering, FFP or profit and sustainability rules are really important because, it may well lock in the status quo, but it also stops the arms race. And then it allows, more redistribution of money because everyone will know, actually, we're going to get to some kind of sustainability here. And if it comes with the same kind of controls in the EFL as well, then you don't get all that extra money just going into wages, which it would do without cost controls. It just goes straight to wages and you just get, more money going to championship players. Would they like more money? Of course they'd like more money. Does it have to be that way? No. So I think it's, the construction of it all it feels very simple. And I guess in 15 minutes on a podcast, we can solve all the problems, right? But clearly everyone is, working in their own self-interest, and that doesn't come to the solution that we all know is the right solution.
Yeah, and I think it also is worth mentioning a few upsides from this because everyone's reaction, largely has been negative. There are a few good things out there for the smaller clubs in this. They will have less games because, like I say, Stevenage won't be playing against Bradford in a replay in November in the first round, which they surely don't want. Those clubs,
I'd be tuning into that, wouldn't you? That'd be great.
I don't even think that the fans of those clubs will be when their second and third choice players are playing in that replay on a Tuesday night in the freezing cold. So they won't have those games, and also there is more chance of that actually going through when they play against a bigger club, in the third round
in a one-off.
Because that's what I have thought for a lot of, basically my whole life, that I felt was kind of like a harsh reality of this replay system. It almost feels like you're actually helping out the bigger clubs because they've got a second chance. They might have an off day and scrape a last minute equaliser against Cheltenham, and then you've got a home game and then you just sort it out. United have done that a number of times, where I think Exeter springs to mind, where we drew maybe at home and then beat them away, or there's been loads of occasions where we've got bad results in a game and then we just cleaned it up in the second game. Whereas an off day in a one-off match gives the team an opportunity to win it there and then, and because
reduces the jeopardy somewhat.
To do it twice would be unbelievable. Whereas to do it once and then win on penalties or something is a lot more likely. So I feel like there are upsides to this as well as the downsides. And And the reason why I kind of wanted to mention just a couple of positives and a couple of different takes and stuff is because largely this has had a really negative reaction. I completely understand that, but there are definitely some positives to this as well.
Well, maybe what happens is everyone gets a bit more sensible and they work out a way of finding some money in the pot. I mean, I think the problem is it feels like a stitch up between the Premier League and the FA.
Yeah, it does.
And although the EFL clubs are on the FA Council board and whatever the FA Cup committee is called, I can't remember, that actually made this decision. It seems like the Premier League stitched it up for what they want. At least that's the impression given. Now, I don't think the FA statement really helps that at all. And clearly, if it had been a bit more transparent, that would have helped. And if there had been some money found from somewhere, whether it's from the Premier League or whatever. I mean, the reality is, like it or not, I personally don't like it, but the bloated Champions League, so the Swiss format that's coming in next season, 4 extra games, means there are basically no windows now. Like, every midweek is taken, basically, for the 4 clubs that are in the Champions League, but also the format for the Europa and the Conference has changed a bit, and there are more games there. I think it's only 2 extra games with those. I might be wrong about that, but I think it's fewer. But it's just like it's so for basically half the Premier League, almost half the Premier League, could be 8 or 9 clubs in Europe. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible to have these replays, and so the alternative would have been allow Premier League clubs to play their under 21s, right? But that would cause a lot of big stink as well. It's not like the Papa John's Trophy is super popular.
No, not at all. Yeah.
You get like 3 people turning
exactly,
up. Games,
Yeah, and again, like teams at the lower levels, they play their reserves and their under 18s in those games as well. They don't care about it. And I think also the thing that obviously a lot of people have spoken about is that the FA Cup's going behind a paywall again next season. Like it's being removed from...
What a terrible decision that is. It's just...
So that means that no English football next season is going to be on free-to-air TV, which I think is the first time ever.
Right.
When you think back to kind of lockdown football, when they actually had Premier League games on BBC and what that... And I think back to my upbringing as well, when like Champions League games were on ITV and the Europa League was on like Channel 5 and Channel 4 and stuff. Like it just obviously just brings it to a new audience. And especially when you've got so much to compete against. And obviously football is the biggest sport in the world and people will find a way, and dodgy boxes are basically 10 a penny these days. But like it is really sad state of affairs for people who either don't want to commit crime by getting a dodgy box or don't have the money, especially in this day and age, to have Sky and have TNT and have all these channels to be able to afford to watch football games. It's really pretty sad. I think that's actually probably the bigger problem, the bigger kind of thing.
Well, look at what happened with cricket. I mean, the standard of cricket is really high because there's more money in it. And it wouldn't survive without Sky TV contract. I mean, Championship where there's like 3 old blokes asleep, that doesn't, like, counties don't survive without the money that comes through both the Sky TV contract and through the England team, like being very popular, both Test and limited overs, right? But it's become a minority sport as a result. Mm-hmm. Like we may love the cricket because it's brilliant drama, and it really is, but only a few low hundred thousands of people actually watch it.
Crazy,
because it's behind the paywall. You lose 90% of your audience, and that's the risk, isn't it? That football loses out to things that are more accessible by doing that. It's short-term money making versus long-term audience building.
And it's so expensive for a Sky and TNT package. I mean, I think Colin Miller's put it a couple of times at how much it costs to be able to watch every whatever United game in a season. Like, and you kind of don't just want Sky. You don't just want the Premier League. You want the European games as well. I mean, not he might not be in Europe next season actually, but maybe not afford TNT. But like, it's just crazy, and it's no wonder like almost every other person that I know these days, like where I live, has a dodgy box, because it just seems like the right solution when it's like 60 quid a year for that.
I've heard they work.
Well, according to Harry Kane,
it's interesting. It is a kind of irony that, I've moved to the States and Premier League's incredibly popular here now. 15, 20 years ago when I was coming to the US, no one gave a shit. But it's incredibly popular. Bars are full with the games on. The Euros this summer will be packed. People want to watch it. They want to watch high quality stuff, and it's really accessible and cheap. Right. So, the only wrinkle really is the games NBC have. So you have to have a cable package for that, which is it's like last vestiges of cable TV, where you have to buy a bundle just to get USA Network or NBC. But everything else, like Champions League's on Paramount, that's like $5 a month. Most Premier League games are on Peacock, which is like a $5 or something like that. England and FA Cup games are on ESPN. That's bundled with Disney if people do that, and a lot of people do that, obviously 100 million customers or whatever. So, and there's no blackout. And ESPN also shows Bundesliga, Serie A, Ligue 1, Brazilian and Argentinian leagues, Mexican leagues. I mean, you can watch absolutely everything. And like, so it's just, there's never been more football available. It's just not in England, and where you all get screwed with a 60 quid a month from Sky or whatever it is. So.
Yeah. And if you only like football as well, like, that's how much you're paying. You're not going to watch the golf. You're not going to watch the cricket. You're not going to watch the F1 that's also on there. It's crazy.
All right. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. If you could subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends and tell your enemies, that would be awesome. Thank you.